I think we are at the very early stage of development, of course, and there's still a lot of learning in the deployment of autonomous driving, that's for sure. The automotive industry is reorganizing itself at the moment, and there's three major pillars that are coming together: the electric vehicle, the autonomous vehicle, and the connected vehicle, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
If you look at the autonomous vehicle, the rise of the autonomous vehicle, then those vehicles have to be able to drive themselves in a very, very complex world. And one of the things that we as humans are very good at doing is dealing with lossy data, to get small glimpses of what's going on and then be able to analyse it very, very quickly. You can't do that with traditional computational techniques.
There are so many other industries that will actually be impacted by autonomous driving, and that I think is the biggest mega trend from an autonomous driving perspective that will impact you and me as a day-to-day liver.
If you look at the cost of a taxi operation, well, 70% of the cost is actually the taxi driver, 20% is the vehicle, and 10% is basically the operations of the vehicle. If you take the driver out of the equation, you change the business model upside down completely.
So the car manufacturers of today are looking at an incremental innovation to get to automated driving. So between now and 2025, every single OEM will have a concrete roadmap in terms of how they want to incorporate autonomous driving into their existing portfolio. So this entire cocoon of cybersecurity that needs to actually embrace the car or protect the car from any sort of security threat is one that the industry will probably need to meet and address even before we see autonomous vehicles in the future.
Can't have a network without security. It's a bit like having a car without brakes. And I quite often say, why do we have brakes on the car? And the simple answer is so we can go faster. Look at security as an enabler and not as a brake, not as something which stops things. Without that security, we won't have over-the-air software upgrades because they won't be safe. We won't have autonomous driving because I wouldn't get in a car which has the potential with my children in that car which could be hacked.
There's many factors in reality that are going to set the scene for the development of autonomous driving, one of which is regulations.
A lot has been said about legislation, but there's the basics like Vienna Convention. Driver always has to be present. That's been discussed with the advancing technology, actually that may no longer be applicable. Some of the technologies around green light optimization, you get the signal from the traffic light to tell you when it's about to change. So the car can then adapt its speed, it can adapt what gear it's in to optimize the operation so that it's the most efficient and effective way of the car driving. So there's all sorts of things that can be done.
Globally, Frost & Sullivan estimates we would have 8 million highly and fully automated vehicles in the next decade. That will contribute to about $60 billion in US dollar market revenue by 2025. With autonomous driving and connected vehicles, the biggest benefit that we see is that the consumers would not mind traveling more. It can go as much as 90 minutes, provided consumers get the connected living aspect between their commute from point A to point B.
The average commuter spends about 45 minutes commuting. What do they do during that time? They're just concentrating on driving. Yeah, they have to today. If they don't have to anymore, then what do they do?
If you have that free time, are you actually going to move away from the city? Everyone's talking about moving into it, but if I knew I had an hour with highly autonomous driving, would I move farther away because I could do an hour in the car with my phone, with my notes? So I think this is really another perspective to look at it. Everyone's flocking to these urban centers, talking about big city centers in 2030, but maybe highly autonomous driving with the HD map as the key changes that, and maybe you go to even further out suburbs than what we have today.